This is the third video about the theatrical age. The last big theatrical shift had to do with style. Before 1600, the vast majority of literate music was polyphonic, meaning multiple independent voices. If you look at excerpt 63A in the anthology, which is a mass by a composer named Palestrina, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's multiple voices, they move independently, they get used in different groups sometimes, two up here, two down there, four spread out, however, and no one single voice dominates the texture. Some people talk about the equality of voices in Renaissance music. That was my cat, if you could hear him. He's having a moment. Also in the excerpt 63A, the composer is strictly following all those rules of counterpoint writing that you've been learning in theory. So these rules are meant to prevent harsh sounds like unprepared dissonances or parallel dissonant intervals. So I'm going to step over to the piano for a minute. Here, you can... Oh, cats are fighting. And I'm going to play you some things that break the rules of this style. So first, an unprepared dissonance. And next, I'll play you a sort of a set of parallel dissonant intervals. So something like this. Right? Those sound pretty rough. And the point of the rules of counterpoint that Palestrina was using is to prevent sounds like that from being in the texture. This very smooth, controlled style was called the ars perfecta, A-R-S perfecta, and it means the perfected art in Latin. After 1600, there are actually three big changes. First, a new texture called monody, M-O-N-O-D-Y, becomes dominant. Monody means a solo voice with accompaniment. One complaint about the polyphonic style was that the words could be difficult to understand. You'd have one voice singing Deus and another voice singing Sabaoth, while two other voices sing Gloria, all at the same time. It's hard to understand what the text is saying. Monody was perfect for the new focus on musical drama because not only could you understand the words more easily, because it's just one line, but you also got a sense of a single individual communicating directly with you, which is more dramatic and effective. The next big change was a new style called recitative, R-E-C-I-T-A-T-I-V-E. So we'll talk more about this in chapter 14, but it's a kind of singing that is very close to speech. It's supposed to sound sound like speech. When the textbook talks about the stile rappresentativo, this is what they're talking about, a kind of singing that represents speech. And then the last big change was Monteverdi and other composers breaking the rules of counterpoint in order to be more expressive. The rules for writing counterpoint in the ars perfecta style were written down by a fellow named Giuseppe Zarlino, Z-A-R-L-I-N-O. He died around 1590. And he wrote a book that's called, I think the textbook gives the translation differently, but a better translation is The Established Rules of Harmony. So Zarlino thought about music the way that medieval thinkers and philosophers thought about the cosmos or about nature, that it had been created by God and obeyed laws that humans could discover through reasoning. Zarlino believed that the rules that he had written down in his book were the final explanation of the laws of music as laid down by God. And the idea at the time was, well, we've perfected this thing. We've solved music. So we can just keep going with this. We figured it all out. And those rules that Zarlino wrote down, those are the rules that Monteverdi broke in Cruda Amarilli, the excerpt from the chapter and that's in the anthology. You can find the specific ways that Monteverdi broke those rules in the textbook and in the text in the anthology. And they're actually very similar to the ones that I demonstrated earlier with unprepared dissonances and parallel dissonant intervals and all the rest. And this is where that big dust-up between Monteverdi and Artusi came in that the textbook talks about. Artusi was a student of Zarlino, and he basically calls out Monteverdi for breaking these perfect rules. And Monteverdi responds by saying that he needs to express the text as intensely and truthfully as possible, and he couldn't do that using the old style. Basically, Artusi says, you're breaking the rules, And Monteverdi says, I'm not playing the same game as you. This is where the whole prima practica and seconda practica mentioned in the textbook comes in. The prima practica is the ars perfecta, and the seconda practica is the new, more intense rule-breaking style that prioritizes expressing the meaning of the text. The emphasis on solo singing with monody, on representing speech in music with the stile rappresentativo, and prioritizing expression of the text over rules of counterpoint all contributed to making music more dramatic. So this is the last kind of set of reasons why Taruskin suggests calling this time period the Theatrical Age. The next video will be about a different suggestion, the Italian Age.